All right, day one of Wing Chun, the classroom. This is fantastic. I'm very excited to do this with you guys and to revisit one of the biggest passions of my life, which I have been not very public about sharing for quite a few years now. So this is great. Over the next several weeks or however long we're going to be doing this, months, and probably after that, but this is going to be much more detailed now. I'm going to be breaking down the Wing Chun syllabus in the entirety and in the aspect of, listen, you're at home, you got time now to focus on the nooks and crannies, the entirety of the Wing Chun, the whole system and the aspect of what it is for training. And you is more paramount and important than anything else. Mondays we're going to be talking about the form. We're going to be talking about Siu Lim Tao, Chum Q, Bill G, Dummy, pole, knife. We're going to be talking about all that stuff and the applications, the concepts, more along lines of it, and what it's meant in fighting application. And then we're going to be looking at on Wednesdays the form, the drills. And then Thursdays we'll be going over live Q&A. I'll be doing that 2 p.m. Central Time. That's 3 p.m. Eastern. And I'll be taking your live Q&As on what we covered Mondays and Wednesdays. And Fridays could be every Friday or every other Friday. I don't know at this point yet, but we'll be doing more conceptual-based stuff. Going back to the beginning, even if you've been doing Wing Chun for 20 years, take advantage of this time to really break down everything you have learned, process it, assimilate it, and really explore it. This is good. This is the best time for you to wind up really revisiting who you are in Wing Chun. That being said, I'm going to be looking at 4 major components of Wing Chun as we go on. And it's essential that you remove all, hey, what do I do against an enemy? Because right now, it's not about that. Especially one of the brilliant things to take advantage of this quarantine is you have no enemy. Maybe you have no one to train with. And this is going to answer a question for a lot of you guys. Well, how do I train without a partner? Well, we're going to be talking about that. It's the 4 things that I really think are the most important things to cover right now in Wing Chun are going to be the martial versus the art. What do you want to learn? What are you learning it for? Do you want to be Donnie Yen and do you want to have all your bong styles look absolutely perfect and maybe choreographed a movie script? Russ Sichan's student, Phil, from the Daily Phillip over on YouTube. You can check out his videos. Well, you want to talk about an awesome fight choreographer. Holy crap. Phil is just amazing. I love his work. Do you want to be like Phil? Do you want to choreograph fighting scenes? Well, that's where you're going to need the art aspect of it. That's where you're going to need to learn the martial art aspect of how good you have to look and how good your Wing Chun has to be. But make sure you wind up subscribing to both Phil's channel, the Daily Phillip, and Russ Sichan, Cichon. He's one of Ip Ching's students up from Minnesota, or is it Michigan? I think it's Michigan, But Russ has got some amazing Wing Chun. Or you want the martial. Do you really want to learn fucking warfare? Are you looking for the no bullshit, just not chi sao? You're not looking to improve your chi sao game. Are you looking to just tear the living shit out of anybody who dare attempts to wind up attacking you? That's the Wing Chun that I want to bring. I'm going to bring both sides to it. This is where I focus. That's it right there. I don't care about looking flashy. I care about you put your hands on me and it's a bad fucking day for you. That's always been the way my Wing Chun mentality has been. So we're going to be focusing more on the martial than we are the art. Training versus application. I must have said that countless times throughout the years. There's training versus application. What are you looking to accomplish? And the only way you can accomplish anything you apply is through training. You just can't do it without a foundation. Excuse me, and your training is the foundation of anything. Got to learn how to walk before you can run. I don't know what else I could say. And one of the analogies I've used over the years is driver's ed versus going on the freeway. You have to learn, your hands are at 10 and 2, rules of the road. Look at the mirror every 7 seconds. Check out your side mirrors. Turn signal before you change lanes. Braking, accelerating rule. You have to learn everything before you can apply it. And those of you who do know, you remember when you were 16 and you were in driver's ed and you were so nervous and oh my gosh, it was like, oh crap, you're driving with both hands on the wheel and you got the instructor sitting next to you and you were so obedient in the rules of the road. And now you're eating, texting, and driving with a knee while blasting music on the inside, and your car has become your own. This is, I'm teaching you the car, I'm teaching you all the points of it. You're ultimately going to drive it how it best fits you. Internal versus external. Well, how the hell do you know how to use your gun unless, once again, I break it down? If I show you how to hold it properly, which stance to use, the proper absorption of the recoil, the trigger, the pounds per pressure per trigger pull, how to dismantle the gun, how to clean it, how to put it back together. That bullet that sits inside that gun, which is the internal aspect of it, you can't fire it if you have no clue how to use it. There's something called a Class 1 malfunction in firearms training where you get Class 2 malfunction. A double feed. You'll pull the trigger, the round won't fire, and then another one will cycle in and it'll butt up against it, and then your gun will jam. That happens when you have not enough pressure. Too much pressure, but not enough pressure on the gun. You kind of limp wrist that gun. Well, how the hell can you throw a punch properly or strike a punch or land it if you have no idea the proper amount of muscle to grip that gun? Maybe too little versus too much. Your stance. Are you firing it? And your recoil is control is just shit, and you can't get your front sight alignment back on to fire that other round properly. Same concept. What happens when you fire that shot and it hits and then your body doesn't absorb it right? Are you able to be in a position to wind up firing another round? So there's a lot of analogies I can give you on this. So we're going to be focusing on the internal side of this to execute the external. So the way you got to look at this right now is we're going to be at the range. The entire time we're going to be at the range. You're not going to be in combat. This is combat. This is the range. You're going to be learning how to do Class 1 malfunction drills, Class 2 malfunction drills. You're going to be learning how to dry fire. You're going to be learning how to target practice, stance, front sight alignment. You're going to be learning everything here at this time. And then you versus the enemy. Who are you more focused on? You guys want to get out there right away and start hitting stuff. And this kind of is the backwards aspect of, this is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and this is boxing versus this is Wing Chun. You know, the reason why the boxers and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsus and grapplers are so dangerous is one of the first things they start doing is making contact. They get in the ring, and they will tighten up their craft as their time goes on. One of the biggest hindrances in Wing Chun is that we spend so much time here that when it comes to here, our game just goes to shit and all of our stuff flies out the woodwork. We do not have enough time spending time in contact with Wing Chun, and we limit that mostly to drills and chi sao. Don't get me going on live sparring. It's one of my biggest bullshit pet peeves. Those who do authentically know their skill level in Wing Chun, to be honest, it's kind of like Rocky IV, where they land in Russia and Paulie's going, no sparring, and Rocky says, I don't need it anymore. It's like he just doesn't need it anymore. He's done it so many times. In this aspect, you're going to know yourself so well that shit, somebody goes and shakes your hand, then you're going to be like, oh my God, I know how to tear this guy apart. And you have to take my word of it. This is what happens when you spend so much time studying yourself in Wing Chun right here. So this is going to be the focus. Of all this, I'm going to strongly suggest you get a notebook. One of the things that I could not do enough of in all of my classes was take notes. Every time I was with my second Sifu, and then every time I wound up was with Syed, my third Sifu, it was a note-taking class. I just was taking down notes. I was asking myself questions. And the beauty of it is I look at questions I wrote in like 2004. How do you do X, Y, and Z? What is the meaning of this? And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't understand that as well. And I've looked at those same notes 5 years ago, and they mean something to me different now. So take a notebook. Start writing down your theories, your questions, your comments, your philosophies on everything. As we move forward too on this aspect, you're going to be looking at the fact that, and we're going to get rid of this. The biggest thing that we need to focus on in Wing Chun is, if we go back to you're the common denominator. We have to look at that there's two triangles. And this is what we're going to be bracing on. This is what we're going to be focusing on. If you're the common denominator in every fight, and we went back to the training and application of it, and you versus the enemy, we're focusing on you. There's a lower triangle and an upper triangle, and this would be your waist. Those are your hips. This is going to be your your legs, and this is your torso. And we're going to separate those two and then put them together as we go. So for the most part, for the next several weeks, what you're going to be seeing is you're going to be seeing this is going to be laid in a foundation. You're not going to touch that. You're not going to touch that. It is going to be, this is your stance. Do not move out of this stance. And one of the ways you're going to have to look at this is you're going to have to look at everything as, let me see if I can draw this properly. You're going to have to look at everything like a pyramid. A pyramid is the strongest structure known to man, and we're going to be using a lot of whiteboard to explain this as we go. But the more pressure you put on the top of the pyramid, it disperses the energy going down into the base, and that's why it is the strongest structure known to man. You can't collapse a properly constructed pyramid. You have to look at yourself that way from both an inverted angle and the proper angle. That's what you're going to have to start looking at. This is you. That's the entire time. And you're going to start looking at your center line very dynamically as you go as well. So we're going to separate the two, the upper triangle and the lower triangle, your legs, your stance, your balance, and then everything that you apply out of there through your torso or your upper triangle as well. So that's where we're going to start on all of this. All right, I'm excited for this. Basic, but not so basic. The more you dive into the basics, the more that you wind up like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is so unbelievably dynamic. And hopefully it's going to stir different thoughts through you as time goes on so that you can see just how much more improvement you have, and you can start thinking more dynamically in areas that you've never seen before. So stick around, we got a lot more to come. All right, crucial concepts to consider while you're training. Things always to keep in the back of your mind. All right, some of the main points we're going to be covering are balance, position, and recovery. It is going to be paramount. What is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal, is it's to win. End of story. It's not to survive a fight. It's to motherfucking win. You want to be as decisive in your victory as possible. Keep in mind again too, it's just like the argument of a firearm. Well, what do people need one for? Your firearm is there to destroy any threat. It's just it's blunt, and we have to be blunt, and we have to be very matter of fact about why we train with anything when it comes to self-defense. So remember, the Wing Chun concept that I'm bringing forward is for self-defense. You're not like, please, I'm gonna, don't attack me, and then you tip-tap patty cake with somebody so they go, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess with this guy anymore. Now your job is to, God forbid, somebody winds up attacking you, or it's a perceived attack. Your job is to end that threat as ruthlessly as possible. It's harsh to say. Don't say Izzo told me to kill somebody, because I'm not accepting legal ramifications from this. I'm giving you a worst case scenario. You treat it as such, and in the default of that, your body posture, your outward persona will come across as somebody that a target will not ever choose to pick. It just won't happen. It's just 99% of the people who out there who are victims, your enemy can sniff out your victim mentality a mile away. So the more you train, the more confidence you're going to get in yourself, and I can guarantee you that people are going to think twice before fucking with you. Balance is essential. If Wing Chun is a stand-up martial art, Ryan used to say in our classes with Syed, if you went to the ground, something fundamentally went wrong in your game. And it's true. Now, it does not mean that Wing Chun doesn't have ground applications. I'm sorry. Let's end this debate right now. Anything you can do on the ground, you can do standing up, and vice versa. Are you going to tell me that a boxer cannot lay on their back and jab somebody in the face as they're coming down? So let's just eliminate that right now. Are you going to tell me that a boxer can't perform a rear naked choke on somebody? We need to get rid of that right now. The human body has a limited but very dynamic range of human motions, and you can apply them on the ground and standing up. The only difference is the fact of balance. Well, when you're think about being drunk. When you're drunk, you lay on the ground, you have all the balance in the world. But why do you think, like cops, we do that one-legged stand test? Because your balance is going to be extremely impaired. So balance is, we're doing our best to stay on our feet. All things being equal, yes, you get punched in the face, you get hit that curvature of the jaw, you get punched square in the nose, you're going to lose your balance. And we have a lot of things to consider to maintain balance. Your position and your recovery. And all those things are going to be dynamic too. Your balance, your self-balance versus your target. Well, you're looking to keep yours and take theirs. You're looking to keep your balance independently, but also when contact is established, you leveraging theirs to maintain your balance. And there's just so many aspects of this as we go on. Your position, your distance. How are you fully extended with that punch? Is it going to have maximum power? Are you going to be so bunched up and too close when you get that punch? Position is to deliver the maximum amount of energy coming out of you as possible in order to maintain your balance, be destructive in your attack, and so forth. And then the aspect of, is it your position or is it your target's position? Well, how the hell can you fire a perfect punch if they're not in the proper position? You're not going to be able to deliver a perfectly square fox out of the throat if you're standing behind them. So there's a lot of things to consider. Keep in mind, the self versus the target is always, always dynamic. And then you are always the common denominator, because this target could be 6'3", like me versus Danny Horgan. This could be 5'7", like me versus Danny Halligan. Or this could be, this friggin' 6 feet tall, 160 pounds, or 6 feet tall, 260 pounds. So yourself versus your target, you will always stay the same. The targets will always change. And then recovery. What position are you in order to recover to fire another round off? And we've talked about that. We're going to talk about the centerline punch and what that really is. It's not a chain punch. It's a delivery of your weapons to be in a great position to deliver another one. That's why this reciprocating motion isn't. It's not a centerline blast. It's a belt feed of your ammunition. And if you look at it again, I said before, if you fire your round down range, your front sight alignment is perfect. There's a difference between pulling that trigger with a smooth trigger pull and minimal recoil based on your stance and your position, to where the gun fires and then you're immediately able to recover to fire another round, versus slapping that trigger and then aligning your sight and going off to fire that other round down there. You don't want to blast a round down and then you fired it improperly. The absorption came back in you. You're not in a good position to fire another round off. Everything is going to be like, in the best analogy, is a firearm. Pulling the trigger, firing a round down range, and then in the best possible position to wind up establishing a better recovery with balance in order to fire another round down range to do damage again. So these are concepts to keep in mind. Everything is self versus the target. How is your recovery versus your target's recovery? Did you do damage to where they're having a difficult time recovering? You ever try to hit somebody and then all of a sudden you drop them, but you're still doing this chain punch and you're whiffing in the air while they're dropping down to do a takedown on you? Well, how's your position in relation to them? Are you able to recover to get another position to wind up maybe raining hellfire down on top of them? And then your balance. How's your balance taken? These three things are so synergistic. They all work together so much. This is all one giant concept that is, it's never ending. It's dynamic. It's always working with one another. It's kind of like the concept of root. Your root, you're never going to stand there in your Iji Kim Myung Ma stance, fire those punches off. Your root is momentarily. It is a fraction of a second based on the energy that you're receiving and you're firing off to reposition to have that root again. And it is ever changing. It's ever balancing. Think about it when you stand. You don't stand completely static. Your body's always moving. And your feet are always finding balance. Heels of your feet, your toes are engaged, the balls of your feet, sides of your feet, swaying your hips. Your balance is always, always, always in motion. That's something you have to keep in mind. The human body is dynamic and it's constantly evolving. Make sure you're taking notes on this, but this is always going to be the self versus your target. And obviously, during this time, this is going to be our main focus, is the self. Always, always, always you. So for right now, 3 key components: your balance, because your balance is going to wind up dictating how you wind up being able to fire and use properly your ammunition, which is you. Your position, are you in a good position to fire that punch? And then once you do, your recovery out of that to be put back in a good position in order to have good balance again to fire another round. Again, concepts that we have looking at. All right, these are going to be some of the most important things to rediscover if you're coming back to Wing Chun. It's also some of the most important things to discover if you are just starting Wing Chun. But this is why we focus on you so much, all right? All right, so let's start talking about it. The first form, Siu Lim Tao, the little idea. This is going to be your study guide, your dictionary, your encyclopedia, the nucleus of Wing Chun. There's two major aspects I think are the most crucial to understand and develop in Wing Chun, and that is the first form and the centerline punch. If you knew those things, and I mean really knew them, you'd be a very, very deadly person. So it's paramount to come back to them over and over and over again. The first form was taught to me 20 years ago, and it still means the same thing, but it means so many different things as time goes on. It is impossible for me to do a complete video or a dialogue on videos that would ever surmise what the first form is. If I did a video diary, and I did that over the years, you'd see the development of what the first form means. These are just a few things of what you're going to be developing as time goes on. We're going to be going back to the lower triangle and then the upper triangle. Keep in mind, once again, we're talking about your bottom position is staying static. And I'm going to do a very, very, very short video, how to open your stance. You're going to sit in that, and you're not going to get out of that stance until I tell you. You're going to open your horse. You're going to learn to build your horse stance just like you would in any other martial art, and you're going to stay there until I say otherwise. Do yourself the favor and listen to those who have made mistakes throughout the way they're Wing Chun, so that you don't do the same thing. Had I done what my Sifus had said in the beginning, which is just train my horse, I would have cut my learning curve in half. You're going to hold your horse. We're going to talk about that as that goes on. The little idea, Siu Lim Tao. It's everything. Excuse me. It is everything. Everything in Wing Chun is found in the little idea. And I'll be breaking down, there's no hook punches in Wing Chun. Bullshit. Bullshit. Yes, there are. There's no ground fighting application in Wing Chun. Yeah, there is. Siu Lim Tao. So we're going to be focusing on the little idea. It's everything. You're going to learn to hold your horse in that. You're just going to learn to train your stance, stay in that position. Again, I'm going to do a very short video on it. You're going to take a look at it. You're not going to deviate from it. You're going to do as I say, and that is the position you're going to stay in. When you're in there, your development of that horse stance is what's going to teach you balance. Not me, not your Sifu, not anybody else. The more you learn your own balance, every question, and these are the questions you can ask me on the live videos when we wind up doing the Q&A, I can't tell you where your balance is, because I'm not built in your anatomy. I'm not inside of you understanding how your flat feet affect the rest of your balance. Do you have knee problems? How are your hips? I cannot tell you where your balance lives. Only you can. So we call that invisible Wing Chun. I can give you the training. When you discover it on your own, that's the invisibility thing. I can't teach you. You have to develop that as time goes on. So you're going to hold your stance for the entirety of Siu Lim Tao training, all our drill training, until I tell you to start turning and shifting or stepping. You're going to hold your stance, and you're going to see how that's going to help you develop as time goes on. So hold your horse. Don't move it. Keep it in play. You're going to learn that it's your feet or under your knees. Your knees are under your hips. Your hips is under your spine, is under your shoulders, and is under your head. That's it. That's it. Get in that position. Stay there. Again, I'm going to put up a very, very, very short video for you to watch how the stance is opened up. You're going to find your balance. You're going to be the one to go, oh, am I leaning too far forward? Am I leaning too far back? Am I comfortable in this? Because as time goes on, you're going to be determining as you hit in the air with no resistance, are you getting yanked out of your stance? If you hit a wall bag, are you hitting that wall bag? Oh, I'm getting rocked back in my stance. You're the only one who will be able to discern whether or not you have proper balance. So open your stance. Sit in your horse. Don't move. Don't move. 108 movements they've stayed the same. I've varied some of as the years have gone on, especially the Tan Sao to Gan Sao section, back to Tan, sweeping Tan out to the side. going back to the original way I was taught, Tan, Gan, Tan again, Yun, and we'll get to that. We'll get to the breakdowns of the terms and the movements as time goes on. So 108 movements broken down into 3 sections. And the 3 sections, as far as I'm concerned, you have the first section, which is energy development. You're learning how to draw that internal energy up from the ground. And if you think that is BS, the more you train it quietly, the more that you're in the moment, the more that you draw that energy up from the earth and you store it in your Dantian, which is right by your navel where your center of gravity is, a little bit below it. You're going to see, oh my God, I actually am. It's energy and vibrations and frequencies. You are drawing it up from the earth and storing it. That's what the first section is teaching you. Second section is teaching you energy delivery, energy distribution. You're going to feel so explosive by the time that second section comes around. You're going to want to just haul off. But how do you haul off that energy without losing balance? Going back to holding your horse. Are you too stiff in rigidity and you're throwing punches out and you're getting ripped out of your horse? You're going to learn all of that. And then functionality in the third section. You're going to see the tools of your trade. You're going to see your Tan and your Gan come to life and your Bong Sao come to life, your Pox, everything. You're going to see everything come on into life and be like, oh my God. And the more you do this, the more that you return to this and rediscover it, the more brilliant this form is going to come to you and be like, it's going to reveal itself to you. And you're going to be like, holy, this is amazing. I love this. You're going to fall in love with Wing Chun just as much as many of us did. Keep in mind, I almost quit this art 3 times in 22 years, and I'm glad that, I was so frustrated that I broke it down, revisited it, and it spoke to me more. Centerline. You're going to learn so much about centerline on this, and there is dynamic versus structural and concept. So one thing to think about, and I do talk about the William Chung lineage. I don't like it. I just don't. End of story. I don't like the blindside concept. It's not practical. I know they compare it to boxing a lot, but boxing has rules, and boxing has gloves, and boxing has weight classes, and boxing has all equal opponents. I don't like their center line and central line concept. It's too confusing. It's the same damn thing. From an overhead point of view, if I'm looking down on you, and this is your head, and I go right in the center, can you tell me which way of the center is forward? It's like a pie. If I cut that pie into God knows how many pieces, if I start slicing it up, the pie, there's center line is all over the place. Now there's going to be a difference between structure and the dynamic aspect of it. If I face right here, this is my center line. And you've seen before, we've done videos that if I take pressure coming right in, you can, if you're with somebody, lean your back against the wall, hold out a Tan Sao, and then hold out a Tan Sao slightly off center. Have them put their hands on your Tan, and push into your body and see if your shoulder can hold it. I can guarantee you that if you move it more towards center, it's going to recruit your hips, your hip flexors, your glutes. You can hold this here all day long. This is the power of the center line in structure. And we use that to show students, when an incoming punch comes in, how, yeah, you veer off center and it'll slide off center because that's the power of it. And we teach people when we get down to the drill aspect of it, you hold this position, right, for like a Tan Da, and then you open it up, and that's like the beginning stages of it. The infancy learning is a punch comes in, and we teach students to do this to wedge off their Tan Sao. Keep in mind, all of these movements are going to be dynamic and alive. It shows people on a divisionary aspect of your center line going that way. Well, if a hook punch came in, because we traditionally show people the Tan Sao to stop a hook with that punch, that their center line is reinforcing, as long as their wrist is on their center line and their center line is facing this way, is that it's reinforcing the structure and the strength of defense for an attack. While your central line, this is what with the William Chung's lineage would be saying, your central line is on an attack. Your center line is dynamic. Your center line is alive. Yeah, you can have structure for center line, and then there's your internal center line for attack. So your center line is not one thing. Your center line is you. It's just the same thing as if I have vision and blinders and I keep it one direction, I can't see. But my body can be turned this way and my attention can be deviated this way. So you have to really think of centerline as dynamic and alive. Centerline holds the purpose for structure, foundation, strength purposes, and then you have a centerline for attack purposes as well too. 2 beats, 1 movement. Keep that in mind for centerline, how dynamic it is. Some of the concepts you're going to ask yourself if you're learning this, is it elbow energy versus position? Yeah, are we going to have you teaching your interline elbows as close to center as possible? Is that going to be possible with some of you guys out there who have tighter shoulders, who are like me, go to the gym, and your lats are very well developed? Can you relax that? Bring your center in as much as possible. I don't believe you should be like Liang Ting and say, oh, I don't believe you should do any weightlifting possible so you can get that elbow in. Skilled mass on mass, larger mass always wins. If someone is 6'2", 300 pounds, and I'm 5'7", 225, and we both train from day one. We started the same teacher. We learned the exact same development. Our comprehension skills are the exact same. We're both in Wing Chun for 22 years. We have the exact same path. That person will be difficult for me to beat purely based on their size alone. Size, strength. I'm sorry. It is, if you think that a 103-pound woman, based on her Wing Chun skills, is going to be able to beat up a 5'10", 200 and some odd pound chiseled, ripped guy who could bench 500 pounds and he's got the same skill level, no. Slow. Why do people train this the form slow? Why should that Fuxao section take an hour? It shouldn't. The legend has it is that Ip Man had his students do that so he can go smoke opium while they were training that. And it is a great way. You have to remember that most of your teachers out there do this to make a living. So if you train it slow enough to develop the skill set, great. No, training that section for an hour, I'm sorry, it's not going to develop any more elbow energy. Now, it doesn't mean that training it fast is going to help. Training it methodically, paying attention to what you're doing. If that takes you an hour, well, then that takes you an hour because you chose to do it that way. So you have to discern the difference between legendary bullshit and taking the time to wind up really focusing on how your skill is developing and the intention that you're putting into it. So time is purely an aspect on what you decide to put into it, not what it's mandated over. Internal energy, yeah, that internal energy is developed while you wind up taking your time and developing it. It's like you can't learn any skill fast and expect it to be really proficient. You just can't. You have to take your time on it. And relaxation. Are you relaxed in the form? Yes. You don't now, and we'll talk about that. There's no tensing up because the more tensed up, your center of gravity is going to rise. You'll be easier to manipulate, but you don't need to be dead either. You can't be like some of the concepts are like a sleeping cat. Sleeping cat is heavy, or sleeping baby is heavy, but that's the energy that you want to put into your opponent. But you're going to learn when to turn that energy on and off in the form, and you will learn that in the energy development of the first section. This stuff, I could tell you this stuff, but when you discover it on your own, you'll be like, holy shit, this is amazing. Oh my God, I love this. This is amazing. So I'm going to do the first section of the first form. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to go through the movements, and we're going to talk about the dynamics of the movements as it applies to you and how you should be looking at it, how you should be focusing at it. But keep in mind, it's the same 108 movements. It's 3 sections. Hold your horse the entire time. Everything is in Wing Chun, and your center line is going to be a pure focus on it, being how dynamic it is, and then structure versus conceptual. All right, this is going to be a visual representation of the stance so you guys see it. And a story, I don't want any argument on this. And you can watch this a few times because it's going to be quick going through it and you can understand why I'm doing it. It is simply a sinking of the knees at a slight position, opening your heels, and then opening your heels again, and then making an adjustment where needed. Your balance is going to be completely different. It's going to be completely your discretion. Don't listen to anybody who says your heels have to be 100% underneath your shoulders, because some people are going to be built differently. But in this position, you can see I drop my weight a little bit. I open my heels, and then I open my feet, and then I open my heels again. So I take the toes are pointed outwards at a 45-degree angle. Then I open my heels, but then I kind of widen out my feet a little bit because I have broad shoulders, and I'm not comfortable at that position. So I have to be a little bit wider. And then I sink. I just let my back relax, and then I have my ass like it's sitting in a chair a little bit. Where I feel the most pressure in this is at my adductors and my hamstrings, and it's a good pressure. It's kind of like I'm working it out. You can see from all three angles. I open my toes, I open my heels, I adjust, and then I sink and I sit. This is a very simple position, but over time, you are going to be the one who ultimately decides your balance. Not your Sifu, not another student, but you. So balance is entirely learned. Watch this again if need be. All right, this is going to be the first and only time I'm going to demonstrate this from the front view and the side view. After opening my stance, I'm going to sit and I'm going to be comfortable. You can watch this a couple times. I define my center fighting line. I punch, Tan Yun Sao. And all of these movements are going to be closed with a Tan Sao Yun Sao, and we'll talk about that. Every movement that's on the right side, or left side, is repeated on the right side. I do the Fuk Sao section 3 times, and I'll explain this as we go, but just get the sequence down. Some of the key components people are going to say is they're going to be able to see. A lot of your Sifus or a lot of your senior students say, I could see he's not relaxed. I could see his shoulders off. And all of us critique one another's movements when the thing of it is you're not in my fucking skin. You have no idea what you could see or feel. It's going to take way too long, but as time goes on, I'm going to start telling you that as I'm doing this movement here right now, I can actually feel my left adductor so engaged and my left hip flexor so engaged. And if I'm on the from the side view, you'll see the same thing. I'm sitting back. My movement, I'm always moving. My feet are still always moving. My hips are always moving. I may be doing one side and the other one, but I could tell you that I'm always feeling my hips. I'm always feeling my adductors. I'm always feeling my hamstrings. I'm always feeling my shoulder, my elbow position. And for those, you're going to get people critique. Well, he doesn't bring his Fuk Sao all the way back because my body and my anatomy told me not to. And we'll talk about that as time goes on too, and the why. But this is just a sequence of movements. I'm only showing you from one side in the front view. Just the sequence of movements. That's it. That's the first section of the first form. That's all I want you to do. Take a look at it again. Turn the sound off if you need to. And we're going to go from there. All right. So that was a very quick introduction to the movements of Siu Lim Tao. I don't want to hear shit about it being detailed or undetailed. Do your own fucking video if that's the case. I'm trying to get as dirty and as practical as possible. And I know how the Wing Chun community is. So part of my videos are addressed to you guys, and the other addressed is the other students who are new, to understand that when you look at someone's content, everybody and the mother's going to be a critic. So enjoy it. If you got criticism, bring it on Thursday for the live Q&A, 2 p.m. Central. Some of the things you're going to have to look at. Briefly, again, what are we talking about in this first form, Siu Lim Tao? Your horse, right? This doesn't change. This is not moving. Do not touch that horse. Don't. Set in your stance. Let it speak to you. Let it come out of the woodwork. Let it figure out what's going on. Some of the things that you're learning from the first form is balance is crucial. You can't stand, you can't fight. Oh, you can fight on the ground. Sure, you got balance on the ground 100%. So you're learning how to keep your balance with your horse stance. Your balance is essential, and you're feeling it as you're moving. As you're moving in a position, you should feel your body start to shift and move and lean. You're alive. You're a human being. You're absolutely alive in everything you do, so embrace that. You're not a robot with perfect balance. Center line. The first movement you do is you define your center fighting line. Where your wrists intersect, if done properly, your center fighting line is defined. And it's left over right and then right over left. Why? Why is that the case? Danny Halligan showed us that it's a concept of mother guarding a child. And then as the child grows up, the child nurtures the parent. Well, if you put your right over your left, and try this. Put your right over the left in a position where down, where the double gansao is, and have somebody push. You can't lift them up. but I don't know how to explain it. Ancient Chinese secret. If you have your left over your right in that opening position and somebody puts their palm on top of your left hand, you can rotate up in that position. It's a meridian principle. It's a centerline principle. I don't know. But the concept is as you come down, mother shields child, but as the child grows up, the child then shields the mother. It's a reversal of responsibilities from a nurturing aspect. 5 points of the center line. No, you're not going to punch somebody. Why do we train the center line punch at this height? Development of skill. Development of skill. 5 points of the center line. It is simply, that's why you're at a comfortable position, a fist and a half length away from your body, like the hang loose sign. Why is your Wu Sao held in this? Because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 positions of cover. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 points of the center line. That's what you're learning from that. Anything past this, you violate your energy, your ability to get out proper technique and proper explosive power, if you will. Energy development, you're learning that. You're learning that in the section of the Fuk Sao section where it's going forward to Yun Sao, pulling back. Now, why didn't I pull back all the way and touch my chest on the Fuk Sao section? Because my body told me not to. And because, to be honest, I've been doing this for 22 years. I do what I want at this point. If my body told me stop, this is where I feel, for me, in this position, when I get to this point here and my elbow is now aligned with my ribs, my abs engage. My glutes, my hamstrings, everything tells me, boom, this is where you are at your most powerful. And I listen to it and I develop that skill and that training from that position because the form told me to. End of story. The things that you're learning in the beginning, you're learning a punch, centerline punch going forward. You're learning elbow position, elbow being down. You want to wind up keeping your elbow down and then understanding your shoulder development, your hip development, your spine development. You're learning a tan sao. In the very first movement, you got double gan sao. Your hands go down to a double gan sao. They come up and you see a tan sao. Yun sao, circling hand. And we're going to define these terms in the drills that we're going to be doing on Wednesday. And then Fuk Sao. Why is my Fuk Sao relaxed? I did a video which really launched my Wing Chun career years ago, which was there is no Fuk Sao. There isn't one. This is where I disagree with William Chung's lineage. What they have, well, it's a dog paw character. It's not a hook. It can be. There's no reason that says you can't. You can shoot up past somebody's head, come into a Fuk Sao, and pull them down into a punch like in the wooden dummy. There's nothing wrong with that. But in this particular instance, the Fuk Sao is your Swiss Army knife of tools. Because if you're in this position and you understand the relationship between elbow, shoulder, and wrist, it becomes a punch. It becomes a tan sao. It becomes a palm strike. It becomes a pak sao. It becomes a wu sao. It becomes a jum sao. It becomes anything you need. Not to mention the fact when you turn your energy on into your wrist and you keep this position taut, you then are putting all of your intent in your wrist and not where it should be, which is the relationship from your elbow to the rest of your body. In the development of the first form, as time goes on, you're going to you're going to spread out the wealth of your intent, but it'll mainly be between your spine, because your hips and your feet will develop on their own, but your spine, which is the pipeline for where all that energy comes out, in relationship to the elbow. I've talked about this. Go to your gym when it opens up and specifically do a seated bench press because it removes the balance, okay? And then a seated row. In fitness, it's called the primary driver, where your hand is. Put your hand on a bench press machine and you put your intent fully in your hands and push your hands forward. Push your hands forward. Now, put your intent fully in your elbows. Understand that your hands are just there for placement. Drive your elbows forward. And do the same thing when you pull back. Pull back a seated row with your hands. Pull back a seated row with your elbow. You tell me which one you're stronger at. I can guarantee you it's when you put your intent in your elbow. That will help you understand the power of elbow energy. When you do like William Chung tells you, and you put that Fuk Sao energy here, you're robbing the rest of your body the relationship development of how to build energy in the aspect of where the rest of your body is. So much more to talk about in the first form, but like I said, you're going to be paying attention to your upper section, upper torso. The 5 points of the center line live here, the center line here, and understanding how deviating off of it either way in that form is going to rob you of power. But then also as time goes on, you still will learn how to incorporate the intent of your center line and its energy focus as you go. All of this will be developed over time the more you do this form. The form is everything. I don't want to really compare it to the Bible, but it's like the Bible. And you could read the parable about the woman who touched Christ's cloak, and years later after reading, I read it in friggin' first grade, and I was like, oh my God, it's amazing, and it means something different to me today. So the Siu Lim Tao form, the little idea, is your Wing Chun Bible, and everything is listed in here. Keep your form static, your horse static, hold your horses, just train it, let it develop naturally, go through things. And these are just a few key factors. I could fill up this entire blackboard with it, but it's so much, and I don't want you overwhelmed off the bat. Number one, just keep your center line, keep your balance, understand you're working on the 5 points of your center line. You're learning energy development in the first section. This is the first section only, and you're learning a couple tools as you go. We will get in that on Wednesday on there. There's so much I have to cover, and we will be revisiting this because on Mondays will be a form day. So don't think we're just stopping at this. We got to come back to this and form your questions, take notes, form your questions, ask me your questions on Thursday, and then we'll revisit this on Monday as far as the form. But I'll see you guys Wednesday for some drill development, skills through drills. So we got Mondays are forms, and Wednesdays are drills, and we're going to be doing this training, breaking it down as much as possible. My job is to share my passion for Wing Chun with you, and really have you develop your game to the next level. To where that, this is a lot of stuff that a lot of people won't tell you. They will charge you a lot of money to develop this. But understand something, this does not take place of classroom learning. This is the stuff you should be doing on your own. And a lot of you guys don't. A lot of you guys show up to class and you'll do Chi-Sao, you'll do partner training, but you won't do this. This is the real work on your own. Let's take this time during quarantine to absolutely embrace it. And there you go. I'll see you guys Wednesday.